One cigarette company is settling an anti-smoking suit, admitting cigarettes are dangerous and addictive. What does that mean to smokers and the tobacco industry? We'll talk to lung cancer survivor Morton Downey.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Karen Rogers. Wally Kennedy has the day off today. After years of denials, one tobacco company has finally admitted that smoking is addictive and that cigarettes can kill. The Liggett Group, the company that makes Lark and Chesterfield cigarettes, has also agreed to turn over evidence that could be a powerful weapon to those suing tobacco companies. They've agreed to turn over documents that show what the tobacco industry knew and when they knew it.
The Liggett Group, maker of Lark and Chesterfield, would agree to turn over documents and provide expert testimony that could incriminate other tobacco companies who still face lawsuits.
This is the most historic thing that has happened in the 3 years of this tobacco litigation, and I think this will bring the tobacco companies to their knees.
The agreement with 22 states, including New Jersey, requires Liggett to pay a quarter of their earnings for 25 years, which would go towards state health care bills. In addition, public statements and warning labels would admit for the first time that tobacco is both addictive and causes cancer, something the other tobacco companies refuse to admit.
I believe this is the beginning of the end for this conspiracy of lies and deception that's been perpetrated on the American public by the tobacco companies. Someone is finally telling the truth.
4 other major U.S. cigarette makers say turning over jointly held documents violates attorney-client privilege. They managed to obtain a restraining order to block their release. Liggett's documents could be used against ongoing lawsuits with the other tobacco companies.
We are finally going to have insiders, witnesses testify and bring to life these documents that we have known about for some time.
Liggett competitors say the settlement is a play for publicity and strategic advantage. The 22 states, including New Jersey, will go to trial against the other tobacco companies armed with the evidence that could bring down the entire industry. That's good news to this man, and you'll recognize him well. Morton Downey Jr., former talk show host and lung cancer survivor, joins us this morning. Good morning, Morton. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks, Karen.
It's great to see you and in such good health.
I gotta tell you, you look a lot better than Wally.
Well, thanks, Morton.
I won't be happy about that.
I hope he's not watching. So tell me, how are you feeling?
I feel like $1 million, thank God. Yeah, I feel great. It's almost a year since I had
Has it been a year?
my 2 lungs, my 2 lobes on the right side excised, removed, taken out, gotten rid of. And I'm hanging in there pretty good.
It must have been such an ordeal. How did that change your life?
You know, it changed it for the better. A, I don't smoke anymore, which I was a 4 to 5 pack a day smoker. B, I spend more time with my little girl, who's now 3.5 years old, and my wife, Lori. And I didn't spend the time with them before. I was always out hustling. Now, I'm still out hustling, but I got them with me. They come almost on all the trips with me.
When did you start smoking, Morton?
I started smoking at the age of 13 when I was a student at Georgia Military Academy. And part of my get into the freshman class was tying me to a chair and forcing me to learn how to inhale. And I should have known then, when it made me throw up the first puff, and the second one made me gag, and the third made me gag, and was about the 20th that I finally got the knack of it. I should have known then the body didn't want that damn thing in there, or I wouldn't have gotten sick from it.
So you smoked just about your whole life. Did it ever control your life or control your television career?
Well, of course, I used to use a cigarette for so many things. I'd hold a cigarette up and I'd look right into the lens and I'd say, "You don't like what you just heard? Kiss my butt." You know, and I'd use the double entendres with the cigarette. Did it control my life? Obviously it did. I didn't think it did. Was I addicted to it? Obviously I was. I didn't think I was. Did I get cancer from it? I sure did, and I didn't think I could. Why? Well, Grandpa smoked. He smoked until he was 101 years old. Grandma didn't. She lived to 97. Uncle George smoked. He lived to 97 years old. Everyone in my family smoked and lived a long life, so I knew that I would smoke and live a long life. I think I'll still live a long life, but I don't smoke anymore.
I hope so. Do you blame anybody for that addiction, Morton?
Yeah, me. I'd like to be able to blame the tobacco companies, all right? I'd like to be able to blame them. Now, until yesterday, the only person I blamed was me, and I've publicly done that. I've come on this show and other shows and done that. Said that I was the fool, I was the one who was weak, I was the idiot. However, now we're finding out really that the tobacco companies knew it was addictive. They knew it could cause cancer. I'm going to have to reassess some of my feelings about who is primarily and only and singularly to blame, if anyone, for my habit.
Well, we have a couple other people we want to meet, Morton. Karen McNally is here. She's one of 8 Philadelphia area smokers who are joining in a class action lawsuit against the tobacco companies. She says she can't stop smoking. Karen is here with her attorney, Steve Schaller. Good morning to you both. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to see you.
Karen, do you blame anybody for your addiction or your smoking?
I do. I have to say that I blame the tobacco companies right now.
And why is that?
Because they have made cigarettes addictive and not allowing me to quit smoking. I don't blame them for me starting to smoke, although with their ad campaigns towards young people, I started when I was 14. It was partly my fault that I started, but I blame them entirely for not being able to quit.
So that's why you're suing them?
That's not why. That's part of the reason.
And what's the other part?
It's the whole deception of the public, of the nicotine manipulation that they've put in to make the public addicted to them. There's several other reasons too.
Steve, how does this whole thing coming about with Liggett and their admission affect your lawsuit upcoming?
Well, it affects the lawsuit in the sense that we've always known, at least in the last year or two, about documents, but now we have live witnesses who are going to come into the courtroom and say, I was at these meetings. I was with these attorneys. This was orchestrated, by the way, through the law firms representing the tobacco industry to a substantial degree, or their lawyers, using attorney-client privilege or attorney work product to hide the information. And what they've done here is really given us the ability to prove our case, and that will be very helpful. But that is not the end-all and be-all of it, because we need to get the money and the steps taken through American Heart, Lung, and Cancer, and Mort's organization, American Lung, is very actively assisting us in this litigation, as is the Pennsylvania Medical Society and the Philadelphia County Medical Society. In fact, I would say that without the support of our medical community, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. But what has happened here is we now are going to go into the courtroom, and we're going to show how they essentially made the decision to make unsafe cigarettes, to make the nicotine manipulated in such a way that it would reach the right level for most people to be addicted, 5 milligrams per day. They then added other chemicals to make it more effectively addicted, such as ammonia, lots of other.
So you think they had a choice? They could have made cigarettes that weren't addictive, and this is what they did to get people.
They made a choice. It's no different, and the public needs to understand that, than if you went and you like pepperoni, and the pepperoni manufacturers added to that pepperoni a secret material to keep you eating lots of pepperoni, and they knew that if you kept eating pepperoni, because of that secret stuff they put in there, 1/3 of you would get sick and die.
Morton, what do you think about that?
He brings up some pretty good points, and when you really want to assess the blame for it, let's assess it as our society. Let's say we are responsible, as Karen says she is. Let's also say Congress is responsible for protecting the tobacco companies by not putting through legislation that need to be put to give the FDA the power to do what they should be doing by the fact that they are the FDA. No one has done their job here. No one. Someone's got to do it. Thank you for doing it.
Well, I want you guys to hold on for a minute, because we're going to bring someone on who says that you're wrong, that it's wrong to sue the tobacco industry. We'll meet him when we come right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. Not everyone agrees that the settlement made by the Liggett Group is good news. Tom Fitton is a conservative member of the Youngbloods, a political talk show on NET. That's National Empowerment Television in Washington, D.C. Good morning, Tom. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Philadelphia.
So, Tom, what do you think about this? Do you think the tobacco companies are to blame for smokers' addictions?
No, the people who are to blame are the people who are smoking the cigarettes. The tobacco companies are making available a product that people enjoy. And the risks of using that product are well known. So to blame tobacco companies, they don't go around forcing people to put cigarettes in their mouth.
I say we reward the folks of the Medellin, all right, in Colombia, for making sure they get plenty of cocaine up in this country.
The problem is, Morton, I just don't buy the idea that tobacco is the same thing as heroin or crack.
Are you a smoker?
If you want to compare, I used to smoke, and my parents used to smoke, or one still does. And I don't think that people who smoke cigarettes, the 45 million people who smoke cigarettes, can be compared to crackheads out in the street.
No, because they have an addiction that's tougher to break than the crackheads do.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that, you know, watching these state attorney generals yesterday here in Washington, you know, I'm used to a lot of politicians playing games, but this was really disgusting to see all these state attorney generals going around begging for media time, trying to get in on this PC cause of going after big tobacco. There's money involved here. States can get money from these big tobacco companies, and lawyers can get contingency fees and other fees if they are successful in going after the tobacco companies.
The sad part of all this is, I've heard this gentleman before, and it makes me sad that these apologists for the tobacco industry keep out there. Because what essentially he's saying is, it's okay for a business to make money, billions of dollars, and kill 300,000 people a year, give Morton Downey cancer, give his father maybe cancer, and it's the victim's fault.
Tom, is that what you're saying, that it's okay?
Exactly
well, it is partially our fault. It is partially our fault.
It is the
There's no right,
fault.
but you remember, he's a young man. He too will pass through that stage of stupidity that he's in now.
I like to go back to the Bible. I hope to, you know, last time we had this debate, I think I called him, and I want to apologize, a shill for the tobacco industry. But what I think I want to talk to you about is, you know, I hope this reminds you a little bit in the future you change. It sort of reminds me of the story of Saul and Stephen, and my name is Stephen, as you know. And Stephen was a believer in Jesus Christ, and Saul was a rabbi, I believe, who was very upset and was assaulting Stephen, and Stephen would stand there and allow him to do it and say, you know, you really are wrong. You really ought to look at yourself and recognize how bad off you are and how insensitive you are to what's right. And you know what ended up happening? Finally, Saul, let me finish the story. Saul finally saw the light. You know who Saul became? Paul. You know who Paul is? Paul the Apostle.
Well,
now, I'm hoping to see you give up your job and take and believe in the Bible, because you're supporting supporting one of the most evil empires that has ever existed in this country. I know you want to dismiss
spare us.
Kill 300,000 people a year. It's sad. We can't make money on the bodies of our young people.
Okay, but one of the ways these people hang themselves is by letting them talk. Go ahead and talk.
Spare us the morality here. You know, folks who overeat are equally at risk for all sorts of diseases. Are we going to go after the makers of Twinkies for making those sugary snacks that goad people into overeating? Of course not.
We did go after them, as a matter of fact, in a lawsuit that took place in San Francisco when Harvey Milk was shot. And we went after, and the man was convicted on the Twinkie debate.
And the fact that Twinkies kill $300,000 300,000 people a year.
He's a young guy. He doesn't have all the facts yet.
I know.
He's a young guy.
I mean, come on.
People who are overweight engage in the risky behavior of eating too much food, and people who come down from cancer from cigarette smoking,
they don't put
that's a risky behavior.
They don't put something
that they
in
ought
the
to know
Twinkies
better
to make
not
people overweight intentionally, and then lie about it.
But you know what? He's right in this sense. We should know enough. We should have enough information. You're right, young man, so that we can make an educated decision as whether to smoke or not. I thought I had enough information. I made the educated decision to smoke. All right. I was wrong. You guys had lied to me for years. You guys had poisoned every puff I took. You guys had killed 600,000 young people who are still.
You know, hold on.
I'm not
Morton, I'm not affiliated.
I feel so bad for you.
I'm not affiliated with the tobacco industry in any way, but I am concerned. I am concerned as an American. I am concerned as an American that these state attorney generals are going after private industries and using the power of the state to shake down private industries.
And why are you concerned about that, Tom?
Because it's a lot easier to go after big business politically than call a spade in terms of the victims who are smoking because they are engaging in a behavior that they ought to know better not to.
So do you think this is part of just Americans always becoming a victim, or saying they're a victim and blaming other people? Is that what you're saying?
That's right, and you've got greedy lawyers.
Because
you've got greedy lawyers and craven politicians taking advantage of these poor people.
These kind of talk shows with this young man, this gentleman, myself, if we had all been able to get together and discuss this years ago, there'd be a lot fewer smokers today.
Let's talk about Australia. You know, I just was in Southeast Asia, and I got back yesterday, and I got a pack of cigarettes from an Australian who was in Southeast Asia, and I saw them smoking. I said, "Why are you smoking this?" And you know, you look at it and look at the warnings. The left side is the Australian. Smoking causes heart disease. Look at those warnings compared to ours, and then look at the side of the packet.
But is this really going to make a difference? Morton, if you read a warning, would you still smoke?
No, you know, I've watched the government lie for so many years, I would have believed that was a lie, too. You'd have to have had discussions like this.
Yeah, I want to add one thing, though, about
these warnings have been very well known for the past 30 years.
Well, wait a minute.
You know, when they go after the tobacco companies for supposedly going after young people, the assumption is that other people are quitting smoking. So if smoking was so addictive and like heroin and crack, as we're supposedly
no, the assumption is the other people are dying.
You know,
all right, you got to replace them.
No.
Morton, you were able to this young lady who I met on the beach in Australia went into tears saying how much she wanted to stop smoking and couldn't.
I quit smoking 10 minutes before the doctor went in with the knife to take out my lung. I literally had a cigarette before I went in.
Well, it was a matter of willpower.
You know, willpower, yes.
You know,
willpower,
then how come I have so much willpower now not to smoke?
How would you like if your organization tied your hands behind your back and said, now I want you to walk across this tightrope, but with your hands tied behind your back? Isn't that a little bit about what the tobacco industry is doing? They're getting you into a position of giving you something that's addictive.
Karen, why don't you jump in here, too?
Well, no more than the coffee industry is in the position of giving people something that is addictive, namely caffeine. And caffeine and nicotine
That's the next
are
thing I want to talk to you about,
in the terms of pleasure they give.
Yeah, well, let me tell you
let's go after the coffee companies now for addicting people with coffee.
Coffee companies kill 1/3 of the people that drink coffee and addict them. And, you know, why don't you throw alcohol in? Because at least
let's throw
we know that
alcohol in. And we'll go after all the other bad industries.
We talk about alcohol, but we also understand in the case
Schiller.
of alcohol that you're supposed to be moderate in your drinking. You're supposed to limit yourself, and we make efforts to do that. In tobacco, we do everything we can. You do, your clients, I should say, or your supporters.
I don't work for the tobacco industry.
You're supported by the financial. Let me finish, sir. What they do is
how much money are you going to make off of this case?
They want you to smoke 4 or 5 packs a day. There's no effort at moderation. Here's these packs of cigarettes, at least in Australia. How has Congress not done anything here? Here's Australia. Dense smoke contains many chemicals, including some that cause cancer. Nicotine is a poisonous and addictive drug.
You know, I just ask
contains carbon monoxide, a deadly gas which reduces the ability of blood to carry oxygen. Now, we know in Australia that percentage-wise, a lot less people smoke there now than they do here.
Hold on a second. Kieran, you had said that you do blame the tobacco industry. So what do you say to Tom who's saying that, hey, it's your fault?
I think Tom is being contradictory in a way, because how can he say, how can you start something when you know it's bad for you and yet support that same company that is doing something? That, number one, is contradictory. And number two, yes, indeed, they do market to the young people with their ads with somebody surfing and smoking and on the beach and smoking and being cool. Young people they're the major target. How are they going to know that it's wrong and that they're actually starting something that's harmful to them?
I've got a way for them to know, Karen. We'll talk about it later, too. All right, lung check.
You know, the viewers need to use their common sense. People stop smoking very easily. It's obviously harder for others.
No, they don't. I have many friends who cry when they have to stop smoking for a week. They break down in tears.
Let me tell you something. Let's just look at one thing. Let's just look at one thing here, folks, because the young man who's talking for Washington, D.C., he has his point of view. We have our point of view. We are the ones, of course, who end up with the cancer. He doesn't. But you know what? Is this man's name John?
Tom.
Tom, lung check right here. Had this been available when I was a younger man, and I could have tested it at home with a sputum by just spitting into this thing 3 times, this will give you a running history, all right? This will give you a running history of how your lungs are. And if they start to become to a point where they're infected, you can always bring them back to health by stopping the smoking. BS, it'll tell you 3 to 5 years ahead of an X-ray.
Morton, you're a smart guy. You know that as long as 30 years ago, everyone knew smoking was, was risky behavior.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. We're out of time. Real quick, Mort, why don't you tell us where you're going to be? You're in Philadelphia. I know people are anxious to see you.
I'm at the Physicians Convention here. I'll be discussing lung check with them tomorrow. That's taking place, and I'm here to see as many people as I can in the press and spread the word so that we can get this young man over to the right side of the ledger this time.
Okay, well, Morton Downey, thanks for joining us. Kieran McNally, along with our lawyers, Stephen Scheller and Tom Fitton out in D.C. We appreciate that. We could talk about it for hours. I don't think we'd ever agree.